welcome to Budget Friendly Home Makeover. My name is Cheryl Fahn, and today in this episode I'm going to show you how to make a coffee table out of a refurbished piece of wood and some crates. So here's the crate I got. I got 8 of these crates, and I'm going to use these for my base, and I'm going to do something really pretty on those. And this top I had was from an old piece of furniture that fell apart, that broke, and I couldn't part with it because it was just a beautiful piece of wood, and I wanted to repurpose this. So I'm going to reuse this piece of wood. If you don't have something like this, you can always just use a regular piece of wood and stain it yourself and, you know, make your own design. So I'm going to take these pieces here, I'm going to put them together and make a beautiful coffee table, and I have a few other hidden surprises that I'm going to show you as we move along. So stay tuned, and I hope you enjoy. All right, you ready to get started? On the very first step, we're going to take all these crates and we're going to give it a weathered look. Now, on the crates, we only have to paint the sides and the inside. The top isn't going to show because that's where the tabletop's going to be, and the bottom's not going to show because we'll have a base under there. So basically it's just the sides and the inside. Then I had 2 pieces of wood cut because I want to lay that on top of the coffee table before I put the nice, decorative piece that I have on top of that to give it a little stability. And then I'm going to use a bottom one to put so they can keep all of these crates together, and so it makes it a little more sturdy there too. And I'm going to put casters underneath. So I'll show you that as we move along. So on this wood back here, we're only going to paint one piece of wood on one side because the rest of it's not going to show. So what I did was I took white flat paint and I added water to it. So you probably want to add about 20% water. That's it. You still want to have a little bit of, not too watery so it's not running everywhere. I used a linen white flat white paint, and I added about 20% water. That's it. So what we're going to do is we're going to just start painting this. Just running it on there, and you can wipe some off too if it's too heavy for you. But I'm just basically putting this on here because I want that grain to still show through. I'm using this table so I can not have to sit on the floor. I'm going to get inside here. And this is going to kind of absorb into the wood. You don't have to put it on super heavy. Just, cover it up. Because what comes through when we put the stain on it, you'll see how pretty it comes out. You'll see that come through. So I'm just going to kind of try and get in here. Get it kind of covered for the most part. Anywhere that's going to show is where you want the paint to be. Did I miss something? I did. Right here. So I'm just going to keep going along here. I'm not even going to do this side because they're going to have the other one butt up against it. And you won't even see that one either. So we don't have a whole lot to paint on here. It's just a little time consuming getting in the grooves. Then I'm going to go inside here. Just kind of brush it in there. Just go in the grain of the wood and just go back and forth right over top. Now, if your wood is really rough, you might want to sand it down. I'm not going to do this because it's the base. No one's ever going to be in there touching it or anything like that. But if you're working with a piece of wood for your tabletop and it has splinters or it's a little rough, you might want to go in there and sand that down with a 220 grit sandpaper to get it smooth. You see what I'm doing? I'm just going to go in here and continue painting. All 8 of these crates will be painted with the white flat paint. And you'll see as you're doing it, the grain will start to show through because we watered this down. If you're not seeing the grain, you might want to add a little more water to it, okay? So I'm just kind of brushing it in. That's it. We're going to continue doing this to all 8 crates. And I'm going to do that back piece of wood there on just one side. We're going to let that dry, and then we can go on to the next step. You know what I'm doing here? You don't even need a lot of paint on the brush, by the way. I'm using the smaller brush because it's easier for me to do the whole panel. See how it fits on the whole panel here? See how nice that fits? I love these round brushes and the square ones. They're great for working on furniture. There you go. So I'm going to continue painting all of these, then I'll come back and I'll show you what we're going to do next. Okay? Happy painting. Okay, so now we're ready to go on to step number 2, which will be sanding and staining the white paint that we put on about an hour ago, I guess. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a 120 grit sandpaper, and I'm going to use an electric sander, so it's a little bit faster. You can do it by hand if you don't have one of these. And I'm just going to go in and just kind of sand it down a little bit, not much, because I just want to get some of that grain going. So it's going to be a little noisy. And all I'm going to do is take this, turn it on. So all I did was I went in there and I just sporadically sanded around just to kind of bring out some of the grain in here. It gets a little dusty, so you probably should wear a mask. I didn't because I'm trying to talk on camera, and it's hard for you to hear me if I have a mask on my face. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to kind of wipe some of this out. This is going to be, if you're doing like a table or something, a furniture piece on the top, you have to clean it really good, get all that dust off of there. I'm just cleaning as much off as I can here. This is going to be under a table. No one's ever going to be under there. No one's ever going to see it, so I'm not going to try and be too terribly picky about what I'm doing. I'm just trying to clean this out a little bit so I can get some of the dust out. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stain the inside of this. And what I'm using is this weathered gray Valspar wood stain I got at Home Depot, and it's really simple to do. You just do it sporadically again. I'm taking a sponge and a chip brush. I'm just putting a little bit of paint on this chip brush and wiping it on the sponge. Now I'm going to take the sponge, and what I'm going to do is just wipe it on here, and it doesn't have to be fully covered, okay? Just kind of go on here and wipe it on, because we're going to go back over this when this dries, and we're going to sand it again, and that's what gives it that really nice weathered finish look. Now, see how I'm just kind of sporadically rubbing it in there? I'm going to take this chip brush that still has stain on it, and I'm going to go up in here a little bit and kind of dry brush some into these corners where the sponge didn't go. Kind of hard to get into the corners. And I'm just going to continue doing that on the inside of all of my pieces. You don't want to overload your brush with stain. You just want a little bit on there, just a little bit, because it goes a long way, and you don't want it on there super, super heavy. So I'm going to take it, I'm going to go on this side now. And the other side, just keep wiping it in there. You want to have some areas darker than others. so that it looks nice and weathered. I'm going to take this brush again, and I'm going to go on the inside of here as well. Just sporadically, just kind of rub it in there. You don't need a lot in there. You just want to make sure there's some paint on the inside there. In fact, I'm not even going to sand on the inside. I'm just going to do a dry brush in there, because you can't get the sander in there unless you want to use a piece of sandpaper by hand and do it. Then you can do it that way if you want. I like doing things the easy way. I'm just going to brush this on here, and then I'm going to do the other two sides. Then we're going to do the bottom piece here. Just rub it in there. That's all you got to do. Go in the direction of the grain. Just rub it in there in your way. I know when you have a weathered piece of furniture, it's not supposed to look perfect. You want it to look weathered. That's the whole idea. So I'm just going to go in here sporadically, add some more paint, stain. There we go. See what's left on here. Probably don't even need to put any more stain on here because I probably have enough already. And just rub it in there. Now see how inconsistent that is? That's all you want to do, is make it very inconsistent. Then what we're going to do is, after that dries, let me get my piece out here. This is already dry. See what that looks like? We're going to take our sander and we're going to go back in there and we're going to sand it down to give it a distressed look, and then it's going to be done. So I'm just going to take my electric sander again, and I'm just going to go in here and go back and forth and sand it as much as you want. Now if you want it really super weathered, just keep taking it off. If you want it darker, then take less off. Just don't sand it as much. Now I'm going to use the electric sander to go in here and do all the flat pieces, but I might have to use a small piece to get into the corners. So here I go. So what I'm doing is like kind of a once over. Once or twice I go over it and that's it, because I want to kind of give it, I want the gray to show through, but I want the white to show through. And the wood starting to show through too, so you get a little bit of that natural wood coming through. So I'm going to finish this. And there we go. This is all done. Now, see in the corners here, let me hold this up for you. In the on the very inside of the corners in here, like close to the joints, if it's a little too heavy for you and you couldn't get the electric sander in there, just use a little piece of sandpaper, fold it in half. You can go in there and scuff that up. Kind of give it a little more of a distressed look if you want, or you have areas that are a little heavy. Just take a piece of sandpaper and go over it as much as you want, so you can get that nice weathered finish. See how pretty that looks? So this is going to be the inside of all of our crates and our coffee table. This looks beautiful on, tables, chairs, whatever you want to do it on. You can do the same finish on any kind of piece of wood. So that's it. This is the piece done. And we're going to move along here, get these all finished up, and then I'm going to show you the next step. So stay tuned and happy painting. We are back with a budget-friendly home makeover, and we are putting together a coffee table made out of crates. Today we are actually putting the whole thing together. Now that we're done painting all of our crates and our bottom piece of wood, we're going to now install the casters to the bottom piece. And here's the bottom piece that was actually stained to give it that weathered look. And now what we're going to do is put these casters on. So what I did was I measured a 1/2 inch on each corner so that my casters will fit on here nicely, and when it rolls it doesn't stick out on each end. Then what I did was I just got a drill, handy dandy drill here, and I marked where my holes were going to be with a pen, and I drilled holes in there. So I'm not going to kind of go through that. All you're going to do is stick this in there and drill some holes. Now that we have the holes in there, we are going to add a couple things. One of the things we're going to put in there is called T-nuts. And these T-nuts will go into these holes so that when we put in these screws, the actual machine screws, it'll have some tooth in there to grab it so it's not directly on the wood, it's on the metal, and it won't like rip through the wood and fall out. So this is how we're going to apply the casters to it. So our next step is putting those on. And I'll be right back to show you how to do that. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to add the T-nuts and the screws and the caster. So basically what you do is just take your T-nuts and put them in the holes, use a hammer and just bang those in. That's all you got to do is bang them all in. That's easy enough to show. And then you take your caster and line it up over the holes and just screw in these screws. Very easy. That's all you got to do. Grab it in there. I'm only going to do it lightly first so I make sure all the holes stay lined up. And then I'll go back and tighten them up. And make sure it's lined up or else it's not going to go in. There we go. And then that one in. And this is all you got to do. You do that, all 4 corners, and then we'll start putting on the crates. Okay, on this last step, what I did was I took all the crates, I put them on the piece of plywood and lined them all up and butted them up against each other and along the edge so they were all even. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a screw in to each corner just to kind of hold them in place before I put that top on, because I don't want them to fall all over the place. So I'm just going to screw, put a couple screws in here. Really simple. Just take a screw and put it into the corner. And that'll hold it so that it doesn't move around. Let me move it over so I can get in here. Kind of hard to do this when you're right-handed, do it left-handed. There we go. So that'll just hold those in place. And now what we're going to do is we're going to put on the other piece of plywood and then attach that with a couple screws so that it gives it some stability. We are on the last and final step of our coffee table makeover. Now we're going to just go ahead and put the top on. And luckily on this particular top that I had, there were already 2 holes at each end of this coffee table. So I'm just going to take a screw and screw it right in there, and that's all I'm going to need. So here goes the last screw on our makeover. And that's all I got to do. It actually blends right into the table. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope this was an inspiration. I hope that you learned something from it. And if you would like to get the step-by-step instructions and all of the links on where to get these tools to make a coffee table like this, please join me and sign up for my blog on Artsy Fartsy Creations. That's ARTZY Creations. And I'd love to see you there. Thank you so much and have a blessed day.